Alright, so I'm near this park by my house, and there's a copy of the Monopoly board here. So I thought it was really cool, so I'll show you this really quick. It's not playable, unfortunately, but it's I'm not sure if it was made by Hasbro or the company that makes Monopoly, but I think it's pretty cool, huh? And then we got the dice here, and then Monopoly in the park sign. But yeah, I think this park is called Monopoly in the Park. So I'm just gonna let's take a picture here, like this. There you go. I'm in the boardwalk. All right, let's get going. So in today's video, basically, I'm gonna tell you guys what I learned from hiking 1,000 miles plus, and just tell you my experience. And basically everything that I've learned and what the hike taught me, pretty much. All right, so a little bit, some context. So in 2022, I hiked 1,000 miles from San Diego to Lake Tahoe, and in 2023, I did 200 miles. In 2024, I did another 200 miles. In 2025, I did another 200 miles, and in 2026, you guessed it, I did another 200 miles. So I've done probably around 2,000 miles all in all, adding together all the miles from all the years. So what did I learn from hiking all those miles? So the first thing I learned is that you will only experience it once. And I already touched about this subject in the previous video, that you only get to experience things once. And if you're hiking the PCT or any other long distance hike, I recommend you, or I suggest to you, and I'm sure a lot of people will too, that you should try your best during the first time you try it, because you're only gonna get that experience once. So it taught me to really value the hike. 1,000 miles not easy, and now I understand that every time I go back, it won't feel the same, so the magic is gone, definitely. But that's the first thing I learned. It taught me to live in the present and not to worry about the past or the future. Always live in the present. The second thing, or the next thing that I learned from hiking, is the whole topic of minimalism. So before hiking in 2022, you could say I was a hoarder. I wouldn't throw things away, things that I don't need anymore. I would just keep them, and that was for documents, schoolwork, clothes, anything really. I just kept it and never threw them out. And so when I started hiking in 2022 for the first time, I was carrying everything on my back, right? So my whole life, my whole house was in my backpack, and that's when I began to think about minimalism and getting rid of things that you don't need, that hold you back in a sense. And so it kind of taught me the simplicity, or living the simple life, is actually more rewarding and more satisfying than having a bunch of things that you don't need. So from then on, simplicity really started to make me happier. And after the hike, I started to become a minimalist. Even when I travel abroad, I don't even carry a check-in bag. I just carry my carry-on, and it's not even a suitcase, it's just a backpack, about a 30-liter backpack that I carry with me. And I take all my important things. Check this out. So the next thing that I learned from hiking is that everything is mental, because when I first started hiking, or when I first started the Pacific Crest Trail, everything was physical. It was very hard to walk up and down the mountain. And at one point, so after a week or 2 weeks of getting used to the trail, my body was used to the trail, so the physical aspect was normalizing, you know, I wasn't getting tired as easily. But then I noticed that the mental aspect wasn't ready. I wasn't ready, you know, to go 20 miles a day, 30 miles a day. But slowly I started to get the mental toughness that you need to do these kind of endurance, you know. And after a while of hiking, you kind of notice that it's not physically hard to hike. It starts to become mentally hard to hike, and it happens to everybody, you know. It happened to me. Every time I start a hike, I'm not ready physically, you know, because I get tired within 6-10 miles the first day and I can't do anymore. And then after a week, you know, of repetitive hiking, then my body starts to acclimate, but my mental state is not there yet. So physically I can go, you know, 20 miles, but mentally I don't want to keep going. I want to stop at every campsite. So that's what happens really. Look at what a beaver did. I'm guessing, you know, that does not look human. So maybe we have a beaver somewhere. So yeah, the next thing that I learned from hiking is that I stopped worrying. Hello. I stopped worrying about the small problems, you know. So one of the best things. So I mean, the biggest things that would get me mad on trail. It was the way it was made. It was the way it was made, you know. In the beginning, I didn't really care, but after a week or 2 weeks, I started to complain a lot about the trail, you know. I was like, who made this trail? Why would they go up? They can just go around, you know. Why would they build it this way, you know? And sometimes I would just cuss out loud, you know. I would just scream like, you know, just cussing whoever made the trail. Because there were times when you could see mentally that you could create a better path, you know, to the destination that we were going to. And some of the times these trails, they just go up and then down all the way and then up, and we hikers were like, why don't you just go around, you know, it's easier, less uphill for us. And yeah, besides that, other things got me a little bit angry was dirt. Yeah, that's a big one actually. So I had a big problem with dirt. So yeah, I would often complain that dirt or little rocks, you know, mud, whatever, I would complain that it was getting into my tent, inside my tent. And more often than not, during the night, I would just complain about it and say that I didn't like for my things to get dirty like that, you know. And I don't know what I was saying, you know. I was a new guy. Of course, when you go hiking or when you go camping like that, you're gonna get dirty, and all your things are gonna get dirty, especially your tent, because you're putting, probably, I'm guessing, you're putting everything inside your tent, right? So yeah, dirt was like really making me angry, like legitly, you know. And the last thing I hated on trail was the discomfort, and more specifically the cold. So every morning was super cold. It didn't matter what I was wearing, or if I was in the desert, or the weather was like 80, you know. It was always cold in the morning. So I remember I remember being cold every single day, at every single hour of the day. There was never a moment when I was like hot. I was always cold, and that started to bother me a lot, you know. Within like week 2 or 3, I was already complaining about the cold too. So So all these problems that I just mentioned happened within like 2 or 3 weeks of me starting the trail, right? And after a while, you kind of get used to the little problems and you start to think about the problems. And for me, at least, I started to notice and to realize that these problems are not like huge problems, you know? They're just little problems, and after a while, I was normal, you know. They didn't bother me. The dirt, I was like, okay, whatever. Everything's dirty. I don't care. The weather, everything's cold, you know. And I stopped caring about the cold too. The discomfort, I stopped caring about everything, you know. But check this elephant out, though, or rather, it's a mammoth, right? Mammoth. Dude, these are huge. Holy crap. But if you're wondering, we are at the Discovery Museum in San Jose. We're just outside from the building. That's why you can see a lot of stuff going on right now. But yeah, all that, you know, all that's what I learned from hiking. And honestly, I feel like I've become more patient. I've learned patience, to be honest. I feel like hiking the PCT has helped me become more patient towards everything, really. It's very rare that I get mad or angry at someone or at something or an event. You know, as compared to before, I would sometimes explode. So that wasn't good either. But the PCT, if I could describe what I learned in just a few words, I would say the PCT taught me to be patient, for sure. But check this statue right here. It's a little boy with the soccer ball and then the boots. What does that mean? It says Shirley Lewis Rorty Sculpture Walk. Children at play, soccer fun. Oh, that's cool. There's more over here too, but I think it's close. But anyways, but yeah, you know, that's what you learn. I'm sure everybody will learn something else or something different, and I think it depends how far you go to. So I only did 1,000 miles my first time, but you know, I kept doing it every single year. I kept attempting to do the hike. While I wasn't gonna do the whole thing again, but I've always kept coming back, you know, and it was a blast. I loved it very much. So everybody's gonna learn something different. I'm sure if people go all the way to Canada, they will learn something different. But I think one of the biggest things that people learn is like to be patient and to keep pushing. Like that should be the theme of this video. The PCT, the trail, or any long distance hike, really, I think, my opinion, teaches you to keep pushing, keep going, to never give up. And that's really the message here that I'm trying to tell everybody, you know. If you're struggling, if you want to change, if you want to do something, you can do it. You can do anything you want in this world. So thank you for watching. Puma here, and see you on trail soon. And just some bonus footage. I found some cats here in the street. There's not many cats living in the streets, but I found one at least. And then some car just come. Here's another cat, and then there's another one in the bag. I think they're scared, but someone fed them, so that's good. Yeah, there's gonna be an event here, I think. I'm not sure what kind of event. It feels like a concert, so yeah, well, I'm sure I'm gonna be hearing the music because I live right near it, you know. So yeah, so yeah, until next time.